What's up guys, today I'd love to share with you one of my favorite chess openings for white. Initially you start off with pawn e4, pawn e5, and at this point you hit him hard with the bishop. Or you just play bishop c4, whatever you prefer. And when I recorded my first video about this a few years ago, it got over 2 million views, and I've got hundreds of messages from you guys how you're crushing it with the bishop's opening, so clearly you're enjoying it, and I decided to share one of my more kind of secret add-ons to this opening of how you can develop a really powerful attack easily. It works well, especially in Blitz. Alright, so your opponent usually at this point is going to develop his pieces like this, in whatever order. And the beauty of this is that it doesn't really matter what they do because we're going to play the same moves all the time. So let's say they go knight f6. In this case, this pawn is attacked, so we defend it by pawn to d3. Then, for example, they play bishop c5, we go knight to c3. Notice that we delay development of our kingside knight, and we'll see why in a second. Black goes, d6 or knight c6, again, doesn't really matter. And now you reveal your initial intent. Instead of playing knight f3 right away, you first push the pawn forward by going pawn to f4, and you're going to play knight f3 then. So by doing this, you kind of achieve somewhat like an improved version of the king's gambit, where you have the advantage of expanding on the king side and preparing your future attack there, but at the same time, it's not even a gambit, because now this pawn is actually defended, and therefore if black wants to take it, good for you, you develop a bishop without wasting any time on this, plus black gives up their center, so now you have central advantage. In the long run, you can even push d4 and grab the center and push this bishop away. You don't have to do it right away, so you've got this semi-open file. I mean, life's good. So overall, an exchange on f4 clearly only helps you to develop your bishop. That's not the right way. Now, in most cases, black will either just ignore it and play standard moves such as castling or knight to c6. And some of them, like more aggressive folks, will realize that pawn f4 also kind of weakens your position, and they will wish to take advantage of this by going knight to g4. Now, the move which looks super advantageous for black at first looks like they're going to play knight f2 and fork your queen and the rook, or maybe play bishop f2 and go after your king. Plus, this queen is now open to go in this direction. Like initially looks like it's just overwhelmingly good for black. But here's the catch, in reality it rather loses within a couple moves, right? So let's start off by this line, and after that I'm going to share with you what to do if black does not go for this hasty attack, but instead plays a more casual move such as knight c6 or castling, alright? In both cases, we're going to roast them. So let's start off with knight to g4. Now, what you do here is you play pawn f5, and that's one of the main intents behind this move pawn f4. At some point, you probably wish to move this pawn forward. I mean, you could, of course, take on e5, but basically that would just be an exchange that doesn't give you anything special, while when you go f5, you really seize this huge space advantage on the king side. You shut down this bishop, it can't get out anymore because of your pawn. Because of the same reason, the bishop no longer defends this knight on g4, because of your pawn that blocks the diagonal. Therefore, your queen now targets the knight, and you're threatening to just grab it. Overall, this pawn on f5 favors your attack on the king side considerably, and we're going to see this in a moment. Now, your opponent sees that you're attacking this knight, but of course, black is still happy because they were going to go knight f2 anyway, and they think that they're about to win the game and you're about to resign. But you stay cool and you play queen h5. All of a sudden, you are creating this colorless checkmate threat of queen takes f7, mate in 1. And you've got just this crushing attack, because black keeps horsing around with a single piece while you just keep bringing more and more pieces into the game and you keep attacking. Black will usually castle because that looks like a smart thing to do. This guards the pawn on f7 and black develops. Now, once again, what you do is you hit him with a bishop. You go bishop g5. This time you hit the queen. It's also worth mentioning that they can't move this pawn forward because it's pinned down to the king. Therefore, they have to address this threat and the queen moves somewhere. Doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't have that many squares to go to, right? Only these two. But it doesn't matter where exactly they go. Now, from here, you don't care about this rook. You're going to lose it anyway, but you don't care because you're going to checkmate them. You now bring the knight on to d5. And as you can see, you just have like these many pieces targeting this king, which doesn't have that many defenders at all. Moreover, thanks to your pawn on f5, you kind of cut him off. He can't bring more pieces, possibly to the king side because of this nasty pawn on f5 that guards all these squares and kind of cut off the rest, which makes black's position just completely hopeless. Let's say black does knight takes h1. And perhaps I would actually have a couple of ways to win here, but the quickest is knight to f6. This is check to the king, as well as the fork, and also it hits the h-zone pawn as well. Therefore, they gotta take it. Now bishop takes, and on the next move, you finish it off with queen g5, checkmate. So as simple as that, and there is no defense. Black played all seemingly natural moves, and they were devastated in 11 moves. That's the beauty of this opening. Now let's talk about the second scenario, where Black does not go for this hasty attack, but instead they play casual moves, such as knight to c6 or castling. Both are supernatural, and of course you're gonna face it over and over again. But before we dive into this, just a quick reminder that it is the very final day to make use of our holiday special offers. And therefore, if you're interested, I would encourage you to do this right now to not miss out. It's up to 80% off on my premium courses, and in addition to that, it is buy one and get one course free. And there is no limit to quantity, so if you buy 4 courses, you get 4 courses for free, for example. So if you want to achieve your chess goals, whatever they are, get to the level of 2000, become a state champion, become the world amateur champion, become the international master, become a grandmaster, we've got students who achieved all that. And if you want to propel your chess progress, I'll be happy to help you. Let's say Black goes knight to c6, and what you do is you play the move pawn to f5, and it is a super tricky move, and it is much more dangerous than it seemed at first, because if Black is not really attentive or not really familiar with this opening variation, which is 99.9% of your opponents, they're gonna castle or just play some trivial move. And as they do this, they're roasted, because you're gonna hit them with a bishop, and if it didn't work, use something heavier. So basically, this position is already hopeless for Black. You're having this deadly pin, and there is no way for Black to break out. Like, just no way. And as you ruin their pawn structure, you get to the king and checkmate it. It's gonna happen real soon, within just a couple moves. And there is nothing Black can do. That's the nice thing about it. Just to illustrate, Black can't use the move pawn h6, bishop h4, and g5 as they sometimes do in other openings, because of your pawn on f5. Now we can use the fancy thing, en passant capture, and due to this bishop, their pawn on f7 is pinned. So Black actually voluntarily completely destroyed themselves. Now let's go back. Therefore, they can't get out of this pin. And if they play any other move, whatever they can come up with, say knight to d4, you then go knight d5, very standard attack. Perhaps you're familiar with it, but let me show it just in case. Now the knight is pinned, it can go, and now we add one more attack. After Black plays something, you trade on f6, pawn recaptures, the bishop goes inside, hits the rook, and as the rook goes or Black plays anything else, you go queen g4, check to the king moves, queen g7, checkmate. It's a very standard attacking pattern, but the problem for Black is in this case they're defenseless against it. Alright, let's address the elephant in the room. So how could Stockfish counter this attack? Well, Black has got to play pawn to g6, trying to get rid of this annoying pawn, because as we know, otherwise they're completely oppressed and just can't get out, and basically they're done. Now, how about pawn to g6? Well, some minor percentage of your opponents might find this move, but there is a really tricky thing that's gonna happen right after that. You trade on g6, and all the classical chess tutorials taught your opponents to capture towards the center. So they play pawn takes g6, pawn h takes g6, which seems like the right move to play, plus it opens up this rook, and that's why the vast majority of your opponents automatically plays this move. Now, but this position is just an exception, and pawn h takes g6 is a losing error. So that's another completely evil trick of this opening. What's the catch? Now after you go bishop to g5, once again you establish this deadly pin, and there is no way for Black out. Now, there's a little nuance in the position. This pawn is on g6, not on g7, which makes this knight undefended. You know, if the pawn were on g7 and would still guard the knight, Black would be totally fine. But because of this pawn on g6, no longer defending this knight, Black is just defenseless. There is nothing they can do. Again, the queen can't move, you capture it, you attack the rook, they're done. If we take it back, what else can they do? If they do nothing, you just add one more attack to this pinned knight. You either go knight to d5 or queen to f3, so somehow you add one more attack and they're done. If they are super creative and try to hit you from the side with rook to h5, you just solidify your bishop with pawn to h4, they're still done, there's still no way out for Black. So the next move, you're going to go knight d5, capture this knight, or queen f3, capture this knight and destroy their position. Now, there must be a way for black not to lose the game immediately, and that way exists. So let me show you what that is, and after that I'll show with you one of the most hilarious chess puzzles I've ever seen. It's really fun, so just stick around. So the right way is pawn to g6, and after white captures, black should recapture not by this pawn, which is very intuitive, but very counterintuitive. This pawn takes g6, which looks bad. It also opens up this diagonal, therefore black can't castle anymore. But in this particular case, it is that exception where this is the right thing to do. Now, then you just develop and you end up with an approximately equal position. Stockfish says it's slightly more favorable for white. Initially, I couldn't understand why, because it looks like nearly a symmetric position, but then I understood that it's still the same thing. Because this pawn is moved forward, it kind of weakens their position. It's not on g7, it's on g6, which creates these weaknesses. And you can bring your bishop out to one of these squares, which could be annoying for black. Due to this little fact, it's slightly more pleasant for white, although overall it's in about equal position. Which is cool, because even if your opponent is super smart, plays all the super correct moves, you still end up with a very nice thing. And here is one of the best chess puzzles I've seen this year. So think about it for a second. It is white to play and win. Just to clarify, black pawns go down in this direction. Therefore, although white is up a rook, it's still certainly very tricky, because if you're careless, black will easily promote one of these pawns and black might win. So you can pause the video and think about it for a second yourself, but just to say it up front, it's a really tricky puzzle. And the first move is especially hilarious, and that's why I enjoyed it so much. The whole solution is hilarious. Now, if you're ready, let's go forward. So the first move of the position is not rook takes f8. By the way, don't ask me how could this rook appear to be there. I mean, I guess we can fantasize and say there was a certain piece, like the white queen there, and black's last move was rook took the queen, something like this. Like, theoretically, we could construct this position, but in reality, it's just a puzzle. Anyway, let's come back. So most players in reality would probably just trade rooks, but it's still very tricky, because again, black's pawns are ready to go forward, and you can actually even lose the game if you're not careful. Now, here's the winning move. Are you ready? It is rook to h8. A completely out of this world move, which just makes no sense at all, and yet it is the best move, and it is a winning move. Now, black's gonna do something because you threaten rook f1 checkmate in 1, strangely enough. Of course, I will probably grab it. Now, what do you then? Well, then you still play rook f1 check to the king. The king has only one square to go to, because your pawn takes away this one. Therefore, king goes back to g8. And now let me ask you to think about it one last time. Now I think it is realistic for you to find the solution. It is white to play and win, and if you can't find it, please write it down in the comments below. If you can't find it, just scroll to the comments, somebody will definitely point this out. Besides that, Happy New Year! I hope that 2024 will be an extraordinary year for you, with lots of victories inside and outside of the chessboard. Have a lot of love, health, wealth, prosperity to our Indian students. I know they like it. And if you want me to be your chess Santa and to help you achieve your chess goals, then don't forget that it's the last day when you can click the link in the description below, and I'll be happy to help. Whatever it is, have fun, take care, be well.